Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today, KOTOR 2 topic, very highly requested topic, we are going to talk about prestige classes, and in particular, in this video, we are going to talk about the Sith Lord and Jedi Master prestige classes. In this video, we're going to do a quick overview of what a prestige class is, what changes with the prestige class, and then what you can expect if you are going from one class to your prestige class, depending on what you pick during character creation. Now, here comes the typical thing where I remind you that if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. The engagement really helps out the video and helps out the channel. And while you're there, you might as well hit subscribe and the notification bell. They're free. So yeah, go ahead and hit those. Again, your engagement really helps out the channel. And if you're already down there, go ahead and drop a comment. Do you agree with any of my topics? Do you disagree? Do you not care? Then just throw your favorite emoji down there. Again, just that free engagement, it really does help out. So you'd be doing me a favor and I'd appreciate you. All right, so let's get started with part number one. What is a prestige class? Well, whenever you hit level 15, assuming you are sufficiently aligned to either the light side or dark side of the Force, that is, you have 75 to 100 on the light side spectrum or 0 to 25 on the dark side spectrum, whenever you go and talk to Kreia on the Ebon Hawk, you can choose a prestige class. So what is a prestige class? Well, it's a new class. It's like, you know, when you were at character creation, you picked your first class. Well, you get to pick a new class. That's super cool, right? The short version is that it makes you more powerful. You get some new feats that you wouldn't get otherwise. You get some new force powers that you wouldn't get otherwise. And they sound pretty dope. So a logical question, do I have to prestige? The answer to that is no, you don't have to. In fact, the first couple of times I played KOTOR, I didn't talk to Kreia. I didn't do really great with all the role-playing aspects and like talking to everyone. So I didn't even know that prestige classes were a thing, you know, back in the day when I first started playing. So no, you certainly don't have to prestige, and you can still beat the game without prestiging. It's not a necessary step, but it is something that you can do, which leads to the second question is, should I prestige? And the answer is probably yes. There aren't really that many downsides. Depending on the class, you may lose like some defense, but on the whole, you're going to get more powerful. You're going to gain some extra feats and stuff. You're going to get better. So in my opinion, yeah, you probably should prestige unless for some role-playing reason that doesn't make sense for your character, in which case don't. You know, again, role-playing game. You got to make the choices that fit your character. So another question is one prestige class better than another? And better is a very relative term, and it's going to depend based on how you play the game. My answer to that is no. It very much depends on how you want to play. The different prestige classes very much align to the different starting classes. The Guardian very much aligns to the Weapon Master, the Sentinel aligns very well to the Watchman, and the Consular very much aligns to the Jedi Master. And the same thing goes for the dark side variants as well. So asking if one prestige class is better than the other is basically the same as asking, is one of the starting classes better than the other? And I mean, you're gonna have some people that say absolutely the Guardian is the best one because they can deal the most damage. Some people are gonna say they like the Sentinel for the role-playing aspect and the extra skills. It truly just depends on how you play the game. So in my opinion, no, one is not better than the other. But again, it very much is going to depend on how you play the game. Now, there are some notable things that are going to change about your character whenever you choose a prestige class. One, your vitality that you're going to gain per level is likely going to change. Along with that, the number of force points that you get per level is also likely going to change. Your defense attribute is going to change, the rate at which your saves level is going to change, and the number of skill points that you get per level can change as well. In addition, you are going to get some exclusive feats and force powers that are exclusive to your prestige class that the normal classes can't get and other prestige classes cannot get. But also there are going to be feats that you are no longer able to get, which we will spell out as well. Those for the most part, they aren't super. You're not missing out on a ton, but there are some that you might care about, which again, we'll talk to you a little bit later in this video. The last thing is that you will get some additional class skills, assuming that you are transitioning from a class other than a consular. Now let's go on to the second part of this video, which is what's new with the Jedi Master Sith Lord. What are the net different things that you are going to see whenever you prestige? The first thing is that regardless of if you pick Jedi Master or Sith Lord, you are going to get weapon focus lightsaber for free, prestige sense, which is a feat that just buffs your defense stat, again, for free. And you're also going to get regenerate force points, which makes your force points regenerate faster. Now, it is important to note that you can get that one on your own without picking the Jedi Master or Sith Lord. And if you do, before you prestige, you don't get that feat like refunded. You don't get a feat back. So you can take that into consideration whenever you're determining, you know, if you're determining early on in the game, if you really want to min-max that hard and get like that one extra feat, then maybe don't give your character regenerate force points. I don't really think that far ahead, but if you do, something to consider. Now, if you are going down the light side path and you become a Jedi Master, you're going to get an extra feat and an extra force power. Your feat is going to be called Light Side Enlightenment, and basically all that is going to do is affect the alignment of your companions. Your companions that are already light side are going to be more light side, and your companions that are dark side are going to be more dark side. You will also gain the power Inspire Followers. This power is going to increase your attack, your damage, and your will save for every member of your party that is not a droid. This is similar to some of your other feats and force powers in that you will get higher tiers the more that you level up, so the buffs that your party will get will change depending on what tier of this force power you have at any given time. Now, it is important to note that if you fall below 60 on the light side scale, you will no longer have access to this power, so keep that in mind if you want to be like, you want to roleplay as like a fallen Jedi Master, you will no longer get to use this power when you fall to the dark side. Now, if you go the dark side route and you become a Sith Lord, you are going to gain the feat Dark Side Corruption, which is basically the same thing as Light Side Enlightenment in that it's going to affect the alignment of your companions. Again, dark side followers are going to become more dark side and light side followers are going to become more light side. You are also going to be given the force power Crush Opposition. This is a 15-meter area of effect ability that is going to reduce the attack and the will save of any enemy in that given radius. Now, the debuffs, once again, are going to depend on what tier the power is at currently, depending on what your level is. It's also worth noting that if you want to play a redeemed Sith Lord, that once you get too far onto the light side path, you will no longer be able to use this power as well, similarly to the Jedi Master's power. When you pick either the Sith Lord or Jedi Master Prestige class, you are going to get 4 class skills. Those are going to be Awareness, Persuade, Treat Injury, and Repair. The other thing worth mentioning is that you are going to lose the ability to pick some feats. Those are going to be Caution, Close Combat, Gearhead, and Stealth Run. The only one of those that you might care about is Close Combat if you're doing something with blasters, but otherwise I don't feel like those other 3 are super popular. So I think you're gonna be okay unless you want them, then get them before you prestige. Now, next in this video, we're going to talk about class progression and going from one class to your prestige class and some things that you can expect to change, and just some ideas on how you can continue to grow your character and what direction you might consider growing them in, given what class you're coming from and going to the Jedi Master or Sith Lord class. But before we do that, did you guys know that I like doing stuff that's not KOTOR related? And you know what? I bet you do too. I bet if you open up your Steam library, you have more than just KOTOR 1 and 2 in your library. Right now, while this video is releasing, we actually have a Let's Play series for the game Little Hope from the Dark Pictures anthology releasing every day on this channel. So if you're interested in watching me crap my pants while I play a horror game, because I'm not really super good at playing horror games, go check that out. I'll put a card in the top right-hand corner. If horror games aren't your thing, but you like RPGs like Mass Effect or Skyrim or Undertale or just other types of games, you should check out some of these playlists that I have up here where we just talk about different games. We talk about some of our favorite games. Sometimes video games made us feel silly. Sometimes we felt really powerful in video games. So go check out those videos as well. I'll also put a card in the top right-hand corner. I like you guys. I like talking in the comments about KOTOR, but I would love it if we could also talk about other games as well. So feel free to go check out some of the other content on this channel. Love to talk to you about some stuff that's outside of the realm of KOTOR. All right, so first let's talk about going from a Jedi Guardian to a Jedi Master. I'm going to say Jedi Master and Sith Lord interchangeably. So if I say one, the same thing is going to hold for the other. So first off, what can you expect to change when you go from a Jedi Guardian to a Jedi Master? First, you can expect your vitality points per level to drop from 10 to 6. You can expect to gain 10 force points per level as opposed to the 4 that you were getting before. As with all of the other classes, your defense is actually going to drop slightly. Your will save is now going to grow faster than it did before. However, your fortitude and reflex saves are going to grow substantially slower than they did before. You are going to gain repair as a class skill. You are going to gain more skill points per level. You are going to gain 2 force powers every 4 level as opposed to getting 1 every level. And you are only going to get a feat every 3 levels as opposed to getting a feat every other level. In addition to some of these basic things about classes, you are also going to lose access to the lightsaber forms of Ataru, Shien, and Juyo, but you are going to gain access to the force forms of Force Potency, Force Affinity, and Force Mastery. Now, I think 2 important questions to answer are, 1, am I immediately going to be better at using the Force? Are my force power is going to be stronger, harder to save against? And the answer to that is no. Now, it's true that some of these force forms are going to increase your potency, your damage, your ability for them to save, but you get those kind of later on after you've already gotten your prestige class likely. But it's important to note that the prestige class that you're getting is not affecting your attributes. It's not letting you respec your attributes. So if you started as a guardian with like 18 in strength and like 8 in wisdom and charisma, you're not going to gain extra wisdom and charisma just for being a Jedi Master. So your force powers are still going to be pretty wimpy. Now on the flip side, should you now expect to be substantially worse at lightsaber combat because you have picked the, the Consular equivalent of a prestige class? And again, the answer to that is no. We're not changing any of your attributes. Now you are going to have fewer vitality points per level, and your defense is going to go down. So you are going to be slightly squishier than you were before, like in the long run, but you're still going to be dealing just as much damage as you were before. Now, next up, we're going to talk about attributes and how you might consider growing your attributes now that you have become a Jedi Master. Now, this one's pretty tricky. I can't go into, these are the stats you should be at because it totally depends on how you created your character. Now, typically there are like 3 types of people that watch these videos. Number 1 are people that are confused, want help, or kind of starting with KOTOR, aka my intended audience. Number 2 are the people that are looking for validation about their build that are not sure if they've done everything correct, which if you're that person, don't worry about it. If you're able to beat the game on easy or normal mode, you're doing fine. Just play the game the way you want to, although you should still keep watching my videos. And number 3 are the people that like to go around and look at other people's builds and tell them why they're wrong. Thanks for that, guys. I appreciate you. So depending on which kind of person you are and depending on how you value playing the game or how you role play or, how you play the game in general is going to drastically impact how you are going to pick your attributes. So this is very hard to discuss, and therefore I'm not going to give you any numbers. I am just going to rank the attributes how I would put them based on my playstyle and just kind of not defend, but tell you why I would put some force powers into those. Now I'm talking both about the attributes that you will get as you level up, but also the bonuses that you will get from your gear as well. So number 1, it's going to be wisdom, right? I mean, you picked the consular equivalent of a prestige class. If you have like 18 in strength and you have like an 8 in wisdom and charisma, I'm not sure why you picked consular, but you're gonna probably want to start buffing that up a little bit. So I would definitely make sure you get all of the lightsaber crystals you can that increase your wisdom or your charisma. It'll do in a pinch. And that will definitely enhance your potency of your force powers that you are likely going to be using more often now. Next up, I'd put charisma. That's going to give you more potency over your force powers. And if you're wanting to use powers outside of your alignment, then that's going to be pretty helpful as well. It's going to be nice if you're that light side guy that wants to spam force storm, because as a guardian, you probably didn't have a ton of force points. So that alignment effect might add up over time if you're spamming a lot of force storm. Likewise, if you're a Sith Lord and you want to keep using those light side buffs to continue doing lightsaber combat like you've done most of the game, that light side penalty might also add up over time, so you might consider adding charisma to offset that as well. I mean, number 3, strength. If you just want to keep like bashing shit and you just want to keep playing as the guardian that you started with, I mean, you can't go wrong with strength, right? Next up, I'd put dexterity. I mean, you can, as long as you have finesse melee weapons, you can just keep bashing shit. You're just not going to hit it as hard. But yeah, you can also go with dexterity. You'll also have the bonus of maybe not getting hit as often too. Number 5, I'd put constitution. It's not bad because it'll keep you alive because you're going to gain fewer vitality points per level now. But let's just be honest, it's not that sexy of a stat, right? And then finally, intelligence. I put this one down pretty low because I don't honestly ever increase this after character creation. I do see some people, I do read your comments, and I do see some people in the comments that say, I put a couple of points into intelligence after character creation. And if you do, go for it, ignore what I'm saying, but I personally don't, so that's why I would put it at the bottom of the list. Next, let's talk about feats. Once again, you're doing this at level 15, so a lot of feats you probably already had. So what I'm gonna do once again is list in order the importance of feats that you might find. Again, this is my interpretation of the character. If you are playing the game differently, if you're playing with a blaster, if you're just playing with weird stats, if you're doing, I don't know, anything that's different for me, you're probably gonna have a different opinion. That's totally cool. Let people know your build down in the comments below. So this is not gospel. This is not telling you you're wrong because you didn't say what I did. And this is not me saying I'm right. This is just saying this is my interpretation. So number 0 is going to be finesse melee weapons. I'm saying number 0 because if you're doing dexterity as your chance to hit for lightsabers, you have to have finesse melee weapons. So make sure that's like your prerequisite. Number 1, 2-weapon fighting. You probably already have this if we're being honest, since you played as a guardian, but if you didn't, would recommend that. If you're, for role-playing purposes, playing as a single-bladed Jedi, then I would make sure you have dueling instead of 2-weapon fighting. Next up, you likely already have an attack feat, as in power attack, flurry, or critical strike. If you don't, start investing in one. For the record, you don't necessarily need one. I mean, people overlook just the basic attack, but I would still rank that pretty high of importance. Toughness. Toughness is going to be pretty nice, especially because you are gradually going to become more and more squishy as the game goes on. You're going to get fewer vitality points, so I would say toughness is going to be very nice to have. Next up, regenerate vitality would be pretty nice. If you're a Sith Lord, force heal could get expensive, so you might consider regenerate vitality. If you don't want it, then don't get it. It's fine. We're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel now. Jedi defense is kind of nice, I guess, if you want to avoid any blaster shots or anything like that. Conditioning, if you want to like save against more stuff. Class skills, if skills matter for you, you picked a Guardian, which means you probably weren't getting a lot of skills in the first place, so you probably don't care about class skills. Last one is dual strike, but like you were a Guardian, which means you were probably already hitting stuff, so that's why this one's at the very bottom. I do not see a Guardian needing dual strike. All right, so next up, let's talk about force powers. Now, one thing that I do want to get out of the way is that in KOTOR 2, you get so many force powers that it's almost, in my opinion, not even worth adding a section about force powers you should get, because you can get basically all of them. But because I know that if I don't include this in the video, someone will say, but what about force powers? So we will talk about force powers that maybe you should consider getting and some force powers that maybe you should avoid. Now, these are in no particular order, but some force powers that you might want to get are Burst of Speed, Force Armor, Force Barrier, Energy Resistance, Heal, Battle Meditation, Force Valor, Affect Mind if you want that role-playing option, Force Resistance, Force Suppression, Plague, and Force Storm. I mean, you gotta have Force Storm if you're playing as a Jedi Master or Sith Lord, right? Now, the reason I'm picking most of these is for a couple of reasons. First, because most of these force powers are buff abilities that will buff your already existent combat abilities from being a Guardian. The last two in Force Storm and Plague, Force Storm just deals a lot of damage. Even if they save, it's gonna deal a decent amount of damage to a large variety of people, and Plague is not able to be saved against, so it's effective for anyone. Now, on the opposite side, you might, it depends on how you've created your player, but I would stay away from a lot of the force powers that enemies can save against. Things like Stun, Force Scream, Death Field, Insanity, Force Wave, and Mind Trick can all be saved against, and if you're a Guardian and you're playing with a lower Wisdom or Charisma Jedi, then they're probably just gonna save against those. Now, I'm not saying don't get them. I mean, you're gonna have so many force powers to pick from. Like, get them if you want them. I'm just saying that don't maybe rely on them because they may not work all the time. I'd also say, like, don't get lightsaber throw or force body because, I don't know, force body I just don't like, and lightsaber throw, you're not gonna have any problems dealing damage, so it just seems unnecessary. But if it's what you want, do what you want. All right, next up, let's talk about going from a Jedi Sentinel to a Jedi Master. First off, what will you see change? You are now going to gain 6 vitality points per level instead of 8. You're going to gain 10 force points per level instead of 6. Your defense is going to drop. Your will save is going to grow faster, but your fortitude and reflex saves are going to grow slower. You are going to gain fewer skill points per level. You will gain 2 force powers every 4 levels instead of just gaining 1 every level. And you are only going to gain a feat every 3 levels as opposed to every 1 to 2 levels. As far as the forms go, you are going to lose access to Ataru, Shien, and the Nemon forms. But once again, you are going to gain access to the Force Affinity, the Force Potency, and the Force Mastery forms. Once again, same comment as with the Jedi Guardian in that you are not going to instantly get any better at using the Force, and you're not going to instantly get any worse at using a lightsaber whenever you first change your prestige class. You're going to be basically the same. Now, once again, attributes. Like I said with the Jedi Guardian, in case you're just skipping around in the video, this is going to be my interpretation of how I would prioritize working on my attributes. This is not going to be how many points you should have in each one, because once again, this is not character creation, this is 15 levels into the game. This also, once again, varies greatly depending on how you are playing the game. If you're role-playing, if you're trying to min-max, if you're doing a blaster build, it varies so much. So this is just my interpretation. It's not me saying that I'm correct and saying you're wrong. This is just my interpretation. It's not necessarily the right one. In fact, there isn't a right one. Let's just get that out of the way right now. First off, once again, I am prioritizing wisdom over everything else because force powers, because force points, because force storm, right? Charisma next, once again, force storm, more potency, more damage, just cool stuff, plus the added of not having to deal with the alignment penalty. Next up, you can interchange 3 or 4, dexterity or strength. I don't know why. When I play as a Sentinel, I usually do like a dex-based build, just, you know, just to switch it up. But if you're doing strength-based build, then I would put strength above dexterity, whichever one you find is more important for however you're landing your hits. Next up is Constitution. Once again, staying alive is very important. And then Intelligence, because once again, even though you're playing as the skill-based class, or at least to start with, I don't put intelligence points after I create my character. If you do, then feel free to switch this. For feats, once again, the prerequisite 0 is going to be finesse melee weapons. If you're playing as a dex-based character, you have to have that. You probably put that as your like initial feat whenever you did initial character creation. Next up is going to be 2-weapon fighting or dueling, depending on which one you're playing as. My preference is 2-weapon fighting. Again, you likely already have an attack feat you're working on. Just want a flurry, power attack, or critical strike. Toughness is going to be very important as well. After that, regenerate vitality, Jedi defense, conditioning, maybe dual strike. I don't know. Again, it's kind of like on the bottom of the list. I mean, once you've got conditioning and attack feat and then 2-weapon fighting, I mean, you're pretty well set. Just pick whatever's fun for you. Now, when we talk about force powers for the Sentinel to the Jedi Master, again, this goes even more with my statement that you can get almost every single power in the game. It's very hard for me to pick this. So what I'm going to say, honestly, is just take a look at the Jedi Guardian and the Jedi Consular section of this video and to determine what powers you should get for your Sentinel. Typically, Sentinels aren't like an exact 50-50 split of Guardian or Consular. Like, you usually lean one way or the other. So if you're leaning pretty heavy on the wisdom side, you might consider the more offensive force powers that can be resisted that they probably won't because you have more wisdom. Or if you're leaning more on the offensive side with your lightsaber, you might go the more passive route and get the ones that buff you. All right, so now let's talk about if you're going from a Consular to a Jedi Master. Once again, if you've made it this far in the video, I'd encourage you to drop a like. You've made it to almost 3/4 of the way through the video, right? So drop a like. It means you like the video if you're here, right? Now, what's going to change when you go from a Consular to Jedi Master? Well, you're going from the Consular base class to the Consular Prestige class, so as you can imagine, not a ton is going to change. You're going to get 2 more force points per level. You're going to go to 10 instead of getting 8. Your defense, again, is going to drop a little bit, and then your fortitude and reflex saves are going to go slower. Your skills are going to remain exactly the same. As far as attributes go, once again, this is just my ranking on how I prioritize continuing to work on them. This is not initial character creation, so I'm not going to give you numbers. I would prioritize working on my wisdom and my charisma. Again, you've already been focusing on force power, so it makes sense to keep focusing on force powers. After that, probably dexterity. I don't ever build a strength-based Consular or Jedi Master. If you do, then I mean, obviously swap these two out, but usually I do dex-based and do finesse melee weapons. So I would focus on dexterity over strength. After that, constitution, again, you picked the squishiest possible base class, and now you're picking the squishiest possible prestige class. So you're gonna be squishy, so constitution's gonna be pretty nice. After that, you can continue working on strength if you have. If you've left it at 10 because you didn't really care so much about it, then leave it at 10. I don't know, it's really up to you. Finally, intelligence, because once again, I don't put anything into intelligence after initial character creation. If you do, move it up the list however you want. This is a set of suggestions, not rules. For feats, this list hasn't really changed from the other two. We're gonna start with finesse melee weapons, especially if you're playing as a dex-based character like I normally do as a Consular. You're going to have finesse melee weapons, but you probably already picked that at character creation. Now, I would probably do 2-weapon fighting as a Consular and a Jedi Master because that's more slots for you to put crystals that will modify your charisma and your wisdom. So for me personally, I would still be going 2-weapon fighting, but if you're doing dueling, then continue to up your dueling. And once again, you probably already have an attack feat that you're working on, but if not, start working on an attack feat like power attack, flurry, or critical strike. I would pick one of them because you're going to gain the fewest feats of any other class. So make sure, so you probably don't have a ton of feats to swap around on getting like 2 of them. Toughness, very important because you have picked the squishiest starting class and the squishiest ending class. So that's going to be really important. Regenerate vitality. Again, you're going to need every edge to keep your guy alive. So I pick regenerate vitality. I know you're going to have force heal and you're going to have the most force points. So there's an argument to not have regenerate vitality, but I personally usually grab it. Now I'm going to move dual strike up the list because you're probably going to have a lower chance to hit than everyone else. This is not going to help you when you're in a boss fight and you're doing this solo. But if you're just doing normal attacks and you run out of force points, especially early on in the game, dual strike might help you by giving you the extra chance to attack whenever you're attacking the same target as one of your allies. So you could do it, you could not do it. I don't really care, it's up to you. Jedi defense, conditioning, and then class skills. Again, class skills you probably picked at the very beginning of the game because your skills didn't change whenever you went from a Consular to a Master. So class skills really doesn't make sense to put anywhere because you've probably already done it. But if you feel so inclined, class skills, go for it. For the Consular to the Jedi Master for force powers, I mean, you've already been getting 2 powers every like 4 levels, and you're gonna continue getting 2 powers every 4 levels. You're gonna be able to get basically all of them. So instead of listing out like every single force power that you could get, because back in like the Consular build guide and the Guardian build guide, all those other build guides that I made, like I talk about force powers, let's just talk about maybe ones you might avoid or like get last in the game. Stun droid ranks kind of low for me. I know a lot of people like swear by stun droids, so take that with a grain of salt. I just don't really get it. Force body, it's still garbage. Force deflection, I mean, you probably don't need it. If you want it, it'll probably be earlier on in the game, but you're gonna have a lightsaber. You can throw some deflection stuff on it. It's probably unnecessary. Throw lightsaber, I mean, you're gonna be dealing a lot of damage with a lot of other stuff. So you probably don't need it. If you want to have it, you can, but like you probably don't need it. Drain force, I've gone back and forth. I mean, they're probably not gonna resist against it or save, but like I've never really found a need to use it or found myself like as a Consular to a Master like low on force points. Like you got a lot of them, but if you feel like you need it, get drain force. Otherwise, I mean, it's one I almost always skip out on. Now, for any of these, if your question is what skills should I put points into, the answer is whatever you want, because that is your prerogative. Role play the way that you want to role play the game. There is no correct way to put your skills. If you're asking about what gear you should use as a Jedi Master, then you should already know that I do not give gear recommendations. 1, because in KOTOR 2 it is randomized, and 2, because that should just be part of the game. Just pick whatever gear you think either looks cool, works for you, You know, do you care about what your guy looks like, or do you care how they perform? I care about what my guy looks like personally, so I'm not qualified to be giving any sort of recommendations over what gear you should try to go get, what you should cheat to get, whatever it is. This is not a min-max guide. However, if you are interested in what crystals you might want to consider getting, I will put a link in the top right-hand corner because we do have a video where we went through and we ranked every single lightsaber crystal. There are going to be some in there that obviously sound very appealing for a Consular and or a Jedi Master. All right, we made it to the end. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. That was everything you needed to know about the Jedi Master and the Sith Lord. Once again, if you haven't already, we've made it to the end of the video. You're here, so hit the like button. You clearly liked the video if you are still here. Comment down below. How do you build your characters? Do you have any questions? Let me know down in the comments below. If you don't have any questions or any comments to add, just throw your favorite emoji down there. Once again, your engagement really does help out the channel. Guys, thank you so much. Just a reminder, please check out some of the other content on my channel and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.